Welcome to Dinner Time Devotions. We are so grateful to come into your house and come into your life with what we hope is a word of encouragement to you. We're in the middle of the COVID-19 crisis. Businesses are still closed. Restaurants are serving to go only. And churches are closed. I said that wrong. Buildings are closed. The church is still open. And we wanted to come into your life tonight just to share a word of encouragement as you face temptations and tests in your life. In fact, our study right now is called Overcomer. We want you to not only survive this, but we want you to thrive through these difficult days. And we're going to share principles about overcoming. And one of the things we're asking our listeners to do by way of the internet is to memorize a verse, to memorize 1 Corinthians chapter 10, verse 13. And we've tweaked it just a little. Someone emailed in and said, what translation are you using? And we're using the Hawks Holler translation. Brandon and I played with this just a little bit. And let me read it for you and I'll make note of what we changed. No temptation has seized you. We changed to no temptation or trial has seized you. No temptation or trial has seized you except what is common to man, meaning other people have experienced this before you. And God is faithful, and He will not let you be tempted beyond what you can bear. But when you are tempted, He will also provide a way of escape so that you will be able to stand up under it. We want to take a few moments tonight and talk about the fact that God is faithful and that God sets the limits. That's the second phrase in this long verse we're asking you to memorize. And by memorizing it, you're going to write it on your heart. And David said, your word have I written on my heart that I might not sin against you. This will help you overcome temptation. If you memorize it and you start feeling overwhelmed, you can become an overcomer by memorizing this verse and allowing it to give you spiritual insight as you go through your trial and your test. This is one of the greatest statements in the Bible. God is faithful. Now you and I are used to hearing that. We're used to the book of Lamentations. Great is thy faithfulness, O God our Father. There is no shadow of turning with thee. That's a great hymn that we sing from time to time. We're used to the word faithful, but these are new Christians. And they don't have a Jewish background. They have a Greco-Roman background. And we know you can trust God, but they thought the last being I would consider trusting are the gods. The gods were manipulative, they were self-serving, they were destructive. If a god visited you, that would be a bad thing. You'd probably want to find out where your wine, your money, and your wife are, because the gods were welcome to take whatever they wanted to take. No one thought of the gods as being good and faithful. So this is a new word of encouragement for these Corinthians, and maybe a new word of encouragement for you to know that God is faithful. Now, when we say God is faithful, we don't mean that God is faithful in giving me everything I want. We mean that God is faithful, that He'll fulfill His spiritual promises in our life, that He'll walk with us, that He'll help us. And so this verse is saying, why can we be confident? Why can we believe we can be an overcomer? Because God is faithful. And because He is faithful, God will set the limits. God will not let you be tempted beyond what you bear. Now, there's time in every one of our life. I'm guilty of saying, I can't take this anymore. I'm going nuts. When are they going to let us go back to church? And we make a big mistake when we don't discern between physical consequences and spiritual consequences. And I'm going to let that rest on your mind, and we're going to talk about that in the coming lesson. But today, what we hope you know is that God is faithful, and He has set the limits. You're not going to be tempted any further than God allows you to be tempted. You're not going to face any trial that God hasn't already pre-approved. If you think of the people in the Bible who we look back on with great admiration, they all had trials, they all had tests, but they all came through them as overcomers because they trusted God. If you trust Him, He will strengthen you, He will help you, He will comfort you, He'll pick you up and carry you when you need Him to. That's Isaiah 41:10, the promises of God.